Hi there, and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to continue in our education of estimating structural steel. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we've already gone over performing both material and labor takeoffs, and today we're going to discuss price determination. So how does one actually go about setting a resale value to this information that we now have? Well, we're about to go there, so stay tuned. Now, over the past couple of weeks, you guys have gotten to enjoy seeing my handiwork on the computer as opposed to seeing my ugly mug the entire time. And today, you're not going to get so lucky. We have a lot of information to cover, and I'm just going to speak it right to you. So for all of you that are familiar with the American Society of Professional Estimators guideline or format for a technical paper, you'll know that there are 9 typical sections, or 10 if you have a reference sheet. And of those, only one of them covers quantities and units of measurement, or in other terms, performing takeoffs like we've done over the past couple of weeks, as opposed to 4 sections which are dedicated to project-specific variables and pricing. So, in honor of the ASPE, I'm going to break today's instruction down into 4 sections. And those are project-specific factors, special risk considerations, markups, and ratios and analysis. Now, in this section, we're going to take a look at the project-specific factors that you need to be aware of and take into consideration that should impact your pricing on the job. And what I'm referring to are the nuances or requirements of a particular project that's going to allow for your performance on it to be either very cost-effective or could be very costly. And the first one I suggest you take a close look at is the schedule. Now, some projects have preliminary schedules that are published with the bid invite, and in such case, the owner might have dictated a target date or an occupancy date on that job. And that date was the beginning of their return on investment for that project. So you need to take a close look at your own backlog and resources and availability to make sure that you can fabricate, deliver, and erect that project on time. Structural steel is often one of the first and most important tasks on any critical path method schedule, so you need to make sure that you're in conformance with that. Schedule delays can be very costly, and you don't want to be the one responsible for that, and especially just because poor planning before you even bid the project. The next one I suggest you take a close look at are steel assembly configurations. Now, some items are very large and gaudy, and they're hard to deliver. Let's take, for example, stairs or canopies or brace frame members that have large gusset plates hanging off of them. The problem with these is when you go to load them on a truck, because of their shape and configuration, you often can't load too many things either next to or maybe not safely at all anything above it. So what happens is your piece count per truckload goes down. So if you have things of that nature, you need to account for more shipment loads to make sure that you don't go over budget just trying to get your materials to the job site. And lastly, take a close look at prevailing wage and PLA requirements. Most any public works project or anything that's taxpayer funded or from bond measures is going to have prevailing wage requirements on it. Now, prevailing wage varies across all trades and even locations. So if you're doing work in several different states, if your territory is that large, and if you have prevailing wage requirements, you need to research what the prevailing wage is for your trade in that location to make sure that you have cost coverage. And then PLAs, or project labor agreements, also called community workforce agreements, they are collective bargaining agreements between contractors and the unions that apply to all trades performing on that job. Whether they're union or non-union, you're going to be subject to their wage and even their benefit requirements on that job. So you need to take a close look at what those are if they apply and make sure that you have coverage for that on your project. Now, next we're going to talk about special risks that you should consider before bidding any project. And the first one I want to discuss is material pricing. Now, steel and the raw materials it takes to produce it are both commodities that are sold on the global market. And there are a lot of different factors that impact the price to the end user. Now, because of this, the market value of steel isn't always very stable. And you don't want to get caught off guard with a material price increase halfway through your job that just blows your budget clean out the window. So the best way that I suggest that you can stay ahead of this is by staying in contact with and informed from your steel suppliers. So whether you're using a local steel supplier or a large service center, or if you're even buying mill direct, I suggest you get in contact with your representatives from them on a regular basis and ask them what it is that they're seeing and expecting to happen in the market. If they're seeing material price fluctuations to go up or down or indifferent, you want to know that information before you bid the job so that if material prices do go up, you at least have a reasonable expectation and opportunity to incorporate that added cost into your bid so you don't get blindsided by it right in the middle of your job. And next, I suggest you take a close look and evaluation at schedule. Now, we just talked about the project-specific schedule that might come with the bid invite, but you also need to make an assessment of your own in-house schedule, right? Because if you're bidding a project, or if you have one on the books, it's almost certainly not the only one that you have in the till. So your backlog is really important, and knowing what that is, what your expectations are before bidding any particular project. Because if you have jobs that do have target dates or occupancy dates and they stack right on top of each other, you can't likely get both of them done and turn any kind of profit with doing it. So that assessment should be done on a regular basis and with upper management to make educated decisions on which jobs to bid, when, and why. Welcome back. And next we're going to talk about markups, what those are and how to apply them. Now, a markup, quite simply, is your projected gross profit margin on a project. After you've compiled all of your direct and indirect costs, including your materials and labor and outsourced services, you've now estimated the cost to produce that job, and you've established your budget for that project. The markup you apply on top of that is simply your anticipated profit margin. And the way that you perform against that budget, whether you come in high or low, is the variance of the true profit you actually generate on that job. Now, there are a lot of things that will impact your markup approach and where you apply them. And not least of all is your current backlog. If you're pretty desperate for work and you need to bring something in to keep your guys busy and employed, then your markup is probably going to be very low and competitive because you need to secure work. After all, beggars cannot be choosers. But if your backlog is really flush with work already and you're still bidding projects to stay actively engaged in the marketplace, which I suggest that you do, your profit margins or your markups should be higher, and for two reasons. If you are secured that work, you need to have the monies afforded to outsource some of it so that you can actually hit those schedule dates. Or if you can fit it into your workflow, it might as well be worth your while. Another thing that should seriously impact your markups and where they're applied on the job is the degree of vertical integration of your company. If you self-perform detailing or installation of your steel, well, you just have more opportunity to apply higher markups in different areas because you're keeping those services in-house. Alternatively, if you're only a structural steel fabricator and you have to subcontract the erection of that, well, your erector already has a profit margin on the number that he gave you, leaving you little opportunity to apply a higher market or markup to his number and stay valuable in the marketplace. You're not going to secure much work that way. But really, the contractors that are getting the contracts and securing the work, those are the ones that are establishing the market value of our service, and you need to know what those are and where they're at, because that's going to play into how much markup you can apply, which is ultimately your profit. You want to drive that as high as you can with winning the work, and that's always a game. Lastly, we're going to talk about ratios and analysis. Now, it's a very good practice that you keep record of the bids that you submit because you can use that historical data as a reference metric for bids that you're preparing in the future. Now, the metric most commonly used in structural steel is price per ton or price per pound, which makes sense given that steel is sold based off of its weight anyways. But as we've discussed through the course of the day, project-specific variables can have serious impacts on the actual price per pound of any job that you bid. So when you're looking to qualify a bid that you're currently preparing, you should check that price per ton or price per pound against a job that you've performed on in the past that had relatively similar conditions to the one that you're looking at right now to make sure that your reference point is both clear and accurate. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up, and then check out our website where you can subscribe to receive videos like this every single week, bringing you only the best in steel construction education. And while you're there, be sure to check out our list of courses, providing you a deeper and more intensive study on topics just like this one. You see, here at the SPC Group, it's our mission to help you know the most so that you can do your best. And finally, if you should have any questions or concerns about where you're going to spend eternity and you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be glad to help you with that too. Thank you and God bless.